agenda. Agenda look like. No, I looked at it when I did look at it. I was like, this ain't bad. This ain't bad.
All right, so
It'll be good.
my favorite was St. Lucia. Gosh, it was so good.
So I came to the meeting last
We got our own private
moment
tour
with the finance meeting.
because
She did great.
our
Yeah, a lot of good people there.
excursion was canceled the night before.
It was good.
Oh, great turnout.
Great
Yes.
teacher.
Yeah, it was
So St. Lucia.
the second one. The first one was not a great turnout.
Now call this Bryan Independent School District meeting to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is 6:02 p.m. I wish to extend a warm welcome to everyone present this evening. Please turn off the sound on all electronic devices, and let's stand for the pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor and protect
Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
We'll start this evening with a spotlight. Deputy Superintendent Dr. Bryan Merrill will highlight our Brazos Valley African American Museum honorees.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to recognize an outstanding group of individuals. We had the wonderful opportunity celebrating the other night, and so I'd like to bring up Miss Lisa Mouton, who's not only having double duty tonight. She not only represents the Brazos Valley African American Museum, but she also is an incredible employee of Bryan ISD. She runs our social studies department and does a phenomenal job. So she wears multiple hats in and around this community, which we're just so very thankful for. And if I can just say, she leads and sits as the chair for the museum. She does a phenomenal job. It's a lot of work, not paid, and you are very familiar with board work and what that looks like. But the addition that the museum brings to this community is immeasurable. And so thank you for just honoring and keeping up the legacy that was so richly established. And I can't wait to see where it goes. And so I'll bring her up to talk a little bit about the recognitions and everyone from the board. So thank you.
I cannot do what we do, especially with our banquet, without the help of our wonderful co-chair of our banquet committee. So I'd like to invite Anisha Gray, if she could come up here and stand with me, please. Every year at the African American Museum, we select up to 10 people that we'd like to honor from the community. And we had some wonderful people in the community that we honored this year, including several people from Bryan ISD, some of whom are here this evening. So do you want to say some of the people, or you want me to? Go ahead.
You want the Bryan ISD ones?
Yeah.
Okay. We had 3 Bryan ISD people. Reverend Marcus Turner, Pastor Marcus Turner, and he's at Kemp Carver Elementary. Minister Donnie Nelson, who's at Rudder High School, Donnie Nelson. I'm so sorry. Donnie, come on. And we have, and then y'all board member, Miss Ruthie Waller. And besides them, we had other honorees from doing different things in our community that are serving our community in all different capacities. And this was our 25th banquet, and so we want to get ready for next year, and we hope to see your lovely faces there again.
We also are so grateful for all of the support that we have from the other members of the committee, as well as the other members of the board who are here this evening. So if they would like to come up as well. Dr. Merrill is a member of our board, as well as Ms. Felicia Benford is also part of our board. We have Madeline Samuels and Helen Washington, Irma Colley, and we also have some wonderful members of our banquet committee here with us in the evening. Agnes Gray and Catherine Warren. Did I get everyone? Yes. Okay. Irma Colley is one of our board members as well. Yes. Yes. So.
Yeah, it's, I've been on it for a very short period of time. And I can remember even going to the museum far when we didn't even live in the community, but it was something that as we rolled into the Brazos Valley, it was something that we wanted to see. And I'm honored to get to work with these ladies on a regular basis and see the work that they do. And it's sort of the epicenter is the museum, but the work just extends out. And the relationships that they have in this community is remarkable. And I'm so thankful to work in a place where we have a museum such as this and we have people leading it just like this. And so it's a gift, truly. And the gala was incredible. I've gone, I guess now since 2018. And it continues to get better. It was a phenomenal night. We're honored to be a part of it in any way, shape, or form. Ambassadors were there that night, and y'all have established the way that we would want our students to be involved. They've always found a place for them and included them in the celebration and the presentations. And so they're really modeling what it means to be a great participant and a great citizen, to be completely honest. And they've always provided a space. Not only the food, and they've given them jobs to do, but they've included them. And that's above and beyond, which I'm incredibly thankful for. And it's just pouring into the next generation. And so the kids know, and they feel comfortable, and they know you by name, and they're looking forward to it every year, and they know exactly what it looks like and feels like. And so we're honored just to be a part of it. So thank you so very much, and congratulations to y'all. The contribution that you make, not only in the various roles that you have in Bryan ISD, but this community. I can think of each one of y'all and can see you in and around this community, making relationships and changing our community for the better. So thank you.
When the first day I walked in, very first job with Bryan ISD, Helen Washington became my mentor that very first day.
Thank y'all.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. We have one thing for closed session posted for property. You want to go back first and just privately say what you need to say, and then I'll put it in the press. It's always a reunion for real. Yes.
All right, item number 5 this evening is public comment on agenda items. We don't have any public comment this evening. So we'll move to item number 6, board member reports. We have one board member report for our executive board committee report from Mrs. Ruthie Waller.
So our executive committee met March the 18th at 3:30. Ms. Carabine, Dr. Ybarra, Joel Bryan, Felicia Benford, myself, Dr. Brian Merrill, Tommy Roberts, and Norma Friddle. I said that right. Thank you. First topic, human resources. We had staffing updates and an overview of balancing staff according to student enrollment. Next topic, enrollment. Student enrollment projections and planning for next school year. Next topic, finance. Current year balance to actual forecast update. Status update for budget development process for next year. We reviewed timelines for budget adoption for the 26-27 school year. And that's it.
Thank you. Our first information item will be an update on the status and timeline of Bond 2025 projects, and Deputy Superintendent Dr. Brian Merrill will present.
We're very excited to share sort of what will be probably the standard for us coming into the boardroom on a regular basis, kind of sharing out the timelines as these projects come up. And the very first one that we just sort of looked at was the Merrill Green Fieldhouse. And truthfully, the reason we looked at it, it's just the nature of the event. We're tearing down an existing facility and going to replace it with something. And that timeline is something that you really have to plan for. Not to suggest that we don't have to plan for everything else, but when you think about a new Bryan Collegiate, we're building it somewhere on the site at the existing facility. It's not, you obviously want to get it done, but we're not having to go without Bryan Collegiate for a period of time. We're obviously going to have the one we have, and then we'll move everything over into the new one. And so in most of the cases, that's what's happening. We're Bryan High, new auditorium, same type of thing, a standalone building. And in this case, you know, we are going to go without a field house for some period of time. When we tear the one down and we're building the other one, you have to tear it down to build the next one. And so we really wanted to look at that timeline and make sure that we are trying to minimize the amount of time that we would be without. And so that's the reason that this rose to the top among really all of the projects when you look at it. All of them are important. All of them are priority. In this case, it has to do with the fact that we're building on top of the old space. And so when we look at it, we wanted to come in and just remind everyone a little bit of the project. And I've got Bobby Griffin here and Jody Madem. And so both in our construction department, incredibly just thankful for both of these men and the work that they have brought. And it's going to be a wonderful process. And I can't wait to see the finished product for all of these. Estimated amount is roughly $35,793,458. And obviously that includes some of those, all of that spaces that you see. The locker rooms for Bryan High and Rudder, new weight rooms, coach's office, training area, multi-purpose space, access tunnels, circulation support, roughly 43,000 square feet. Video board and distributed sound system also is in there. And we've been in before, but PBK Architects was selected for that architectural firm. And what we wanted to show is this next slide. And this next slide has to do with the timeline. Again, as we thought about the projects and we've been discussing which one would, you know, sort of take priority. Again, this one takes priority mainly because we're going to have to go without it. And so beginning it allows us to, as we go into the programming and schematic design, the design development, obviously the construction documents, it allows us to hopefully minimize the impact of not having the field house. Now, we've talked with our athletic department and principal at Bryan High School and all of the necessary individuals to really work out what that will look like, because we're still going to need a locker room. They're still going to need places to change. They're still going to need that for not only prior to the game, but then during game day. And so we're working on that as we speak to finalize those plans. But nonetheless, we needed to get this on the ground so that we can start working on it. And so The other one that's almost running simultaneously, and I'll let either one of these gentlemen say a few words as y'all look at it, it would be the new video board. As we consider that, we're going to need to tear down, obviously, the existing field house, and in doing so, we're going to have to remove that board. And so we have additional sports that will be playing, seasons that will be going on as that new space is being constructed, and we don't want them to go without a video board. So when you think about whether it's football, soccer, whatever's taking place, they will be needing to use that video board. And so that really becomes one of the first projects that we need to get on timeline to make sure that even drill team or band doesn't have a season where they're not able to access that video board and able to use it. And so along the same timeline, running almost simultaneously, is the video board that would get it as we're demoing the existing field house. We would have constructed the video board, and we're looking at current locations, whether that's the opposite end of kind of on Briarcrest or where it currently sit, but we're working through the architectural design of that. So we wanted to bring this forward. Again, this is the potential schedule. We've talked with the architects, and they feel confident that this can work, and at the same time, you know, it's all dependent on weather, and there are many other factors that could obviously play a role in this. And so we just wanted to be upfront and honest as we bring this forward to look at, to know that, you know, to build a new one, we have to tear the old one down. And the way that that's going to work is obviously having at least a season without the field house. But we would find suitable locations for our other athletes. And so we'll be happy to answer questions, and I'd be happy to turn it over to Jody or to Bobby for them to share. And this is really kind of the end of the slides, unless you got questions.
Dr. Merrill, can you go back to the very first, when you were talking about there you go, yeah. So you mentioned, here's the amount in locker rooms for Bryan High
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Rudder High School, weight room, coaches' offices, training areas. Okay, when you say locker rooms and being a coach
Yes, ma'am.
in that particular locker room, I want to remind everyone that there's girls' sports too. And so it's not, you know, when you
No,
think
ma'am,
of
it's not
locker
just football.
rooms at Bryan High Fieldhouse, most people think football.
Football,
You've got track.
soccer.
You've got softball, you've got soccer. They have uniform storage, equipment storage, you know.
Access to the trainer.
They share the conference rooms, they share the weight
Yes,
rooms.
ma'am.
And so those are locker rooms
Yes, ma'am.
that are not football locker rooms.
No, ma'am.
So when you're talking about this much money, you're talking about a lot of students, athletes, and, you know, girls too.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, you are. And we're even, with the integration of the video board and distributed sound system, you're looking at involving CTE as well. So you're not only going to have the CTE component out there in possible classrooms, you're also going to have it in the training spaces. That's going to function as a classroom on a daily basis, on top of the other 1,000+ students that will be in and out of that space on a regular basis. And this has nothing to do with games. This just has to do with their classes during the day.
Dr. Merrill, would you guys remind everyone in our community what programming looks like and how many stakeholders will be at the table?
Yes, ma'am. That's a great point.
To Ms. Waller's point, girls and boys
Yes, ma'am.
sports and all the different groups coming out of Rudder and Bryan, and as well as other entities using the.
That's a wonderful question. Thank you so much. So as you look at the schematic design and design development, we're going to involve all of the end users. So when you start thinking about all the way from Derek over here to my left to Josh, to Trent, to all the coaches, Treasure Jack, anyone that's going to be in that space. And as you pointed out, Ruthie, there's a lot of people that will be using that space that will be in and out. And so we will talk with them, not only about their locker room, but really how does the field house function for them? You know, football on Friday night, it's also when the bands perform. It's also when choir performs. It's also, I go for halftime. I get to watch my daughter dance and see the bands. And so I love that football games happen at the same time. I love halftime. They're going to take full advantage of that, and they practice on the field on a regular basis. Being able to have a video board where they see themselves not only march, if that's the case for the band, but also dance and see their alignment on a field, that's going to pay dividends, and it's going to give them an experience that they haven't been able to have. And so We're very excited about it. And so when you think about that design, even the drill team sponsors will be involved. And we've brought Rudder over because they're going to have a dedicated space, and it's going to be outfitted with Rudder gear and with all of their marketing. And so they've been included and will be included in the design. And as we begin to finalize those things, we will just continue to have conversations. And as Bobby points out, and Jody points on a regular basis, our job is to facilitate the building and facilitate the construction. And we have opinions, but really it's their building. They're going to live in it, and we want to design what they want.
Thank you. Just one more thing to that point. You want to explain just briefly about the field trip to go out and
Yes,
look
ma'am.
at other field houses?
Yes,
so that we have a starting point and we can think about what we like from each that
Yes,
we
ma'am.
tour.
Yeah, so we definitely want to see all of what's out there, and so we are going to take a field trip into Houston to look at a couple of different field houses to get some ideas of what they look like and how they function in the space, to get some perspective so that we can gain some insight. And I want to point something out that I failed to, and Ms. Garabon, you've made this a kind of a, it's just a characteristic, is talking to the students. And so we are going to talk with them as well as we build this. And so, again, they're going to be living in this space. They're looking forward to it. And as we do focus groups, getting their opinion on what things should look like, I think is really going to be important as well. So as we go out and about, we'll take notes and see things and hopefully be able to bring it back. And it's going to be a centerpiece, just like Bryan Collegiate will be a centerpiece. Honestly, just like the auditorium will be a centerpiece for Bryan High, and the stadium, or not the stadium, but the gym over at Rudder. All those will become centerpieces for those campuses. Any other questions, these guys?
So Brian,
Yes, ma'am.
the video board is going to be December this year.
Well, we're looking at it, yes, ma'am. And we've asked PBK Sports to program that. So we would begin to look at the scope of it and look at the location. We want to design it so that it matches the field house, so that we don't have something that's independent. And again, if we're tearing down the old field house, we're going to need the video board for the others, for all the sports. They're going to need it.
The current video board is attached to the existing field house. So we know we're losing that. And we're also concerned with how do we keep Merrill Green Stadium open? So we will be losing the building, but we don't want to lose the stadium. We want to still be able to have every sport that we've always had. We want to keep Friday Night Lights going for the band, for the dance, for everybody else. We don't want to have to push our game someplace else. So in doing that, the only way we could facilitate that is to go ahead and prioritize putting the new video board up and the sound system. That gets us where we can keep having games, keep serving our students and our public, and continue with the structure. As we look up and see, that's a long time. I know I get the pressure all the time. What's taking so long? Why are we dragging this out? But it is because we are customizing this space to our students, to our staff. You don't want a cookie cutter. You don't want just to go grab anything off the shelf. You want us to design so it meets all the criteria. I want a building that lasts 50 years, but I want every student to walk through those doors to be shocked. I want them to be proud of what we have. And we can't do that if we just throw something together. We have to design it.
The only thing I would say is the one thing that we are not going to forget either is Rich and all the support staff. We need to know how big the environmental services rooms are, all of those things that we don't want to forget, the support folks that are going to have to maintain and keep this building alive, hopefully for the next 50, 60 years. So that's a subset of group that, the same thing with IT. That's a subset of group that we are going to involve in this as well. So,
Thank you, Jim. Sure. We hired well.
Just one more question on the video board. So is the plan to put it somewhere temporarily and then move it once the?
So no, sir. The plan would be to construct a new video board. If the design is to put it at the opposite end, we would put it down there. So we're asking PBK to bring us some options of where that video board could go so that we don't go a season without a video board. And not to say that it's a guaranteed, but in most designs, they would put it on the opposite end of the field house. And so that current board would need to come down as we tore the whole thing down, and we would have the other one constructed at the opposite end. Now, again, I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse with the design. We've asked them to do that, and clearly we would bring all of that to you. But that's just what we've asked them to do. And in most of what we've just looked online, that's what the design looks like.
So what I'm hearing you say is you imagine bringing some kind of plan or
Yes, ma'am.
renderings,
Yes, ma'am.
schematics, all
Yes,
that
ma'am.
before we do anything?
Right.
Because the board would ultimately have to approve the
They would.
purchase.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And looking through, we are talking about a year from now, basically,
Yes, ma'am.
before. And then, wouldn't it actually be constructed until right at that time? I mean, we want to make sure that the new video board is going in so that when we demo, we can immediately have track, soccer, every other sport necessary, but we wouldn't interrupt the use of the field.
Right. We would always be able to have all of the normal events on the field, even while the field house is being constructed.
Well, I think that's ambitious and and also very challenging to say, well, we're going to not miss a beat with regard to use of our facilities. I guess the only question I just want information as we move on is if we're going to have to jump through some big hoops to accomplish that, I'd want to know, what is that going to cost? And because I don't know that it would be the end of the world if we were able to efficiently use somebody else's stadium on a temporary basis if it came down to it, because I'm interested in knowing how we're going to accommodate everybody when we're in between field houses. So,
Right.
So if it works, great. But y'all are going to come up with a plan and tell us about it. So
We are, and we have.
Okay.
So that really isn't the presentation. I'm happy to obviously address that. We've worked with not only Eric Izar, Blake Joseph, Derek, and Josh Woodall, but we've looked at the internal spaces. So there's really a couple things. You've got kind of the everyday locker room that you're going to need, where they're changing, they're getting ready for practice. It's a classroom, right? They're changing clothes. They're going to go out to the field. And then you have a whole nother need, which is a game day. And so where do you go at halftime during a football game? And so we've looked at various options for that, and we will eventually nail it down and come back into the boardroom, or at least let y'all know kind of what it is. But Derek's done a great job, and we wouldn't do anything without talking to the end users, and so they've been a part of that conversation. And again, we're not trying to rush anything. That's not really the goal. We're going to design this well. We're going to make sure that as it's customized to exactly what we want, and also with the idea of that being financially the best decision for Bryan ISD. Those are always going to be things that we look at as we design this, and we're not going to just rush it on through and have to expedite this process at a cost and efficiency. We wouldn't do that, and we don't need to do that. And we've got available space not only in Bryan High School, but we've also talked about Plan B and Plan C if we need to find locations for those athletes.
Will the summer, not this summer, but will summer programs continue there while all of the construction and everything's going on too?
Possibly. It depends on where they are during the construction. It potentially could even be moved back a little bit. All that needs to come out in the design. So it's not necessary. We would have to see where they are in the construction. There's quite a distance between the field, obviously, and the stadium. The track is going to be closer to the building, and so we would just need to see where they are in that process.
Certain things are literally going to be driven by existing conditions. So there's not a whole lot we can change about existing conditions. But we're trying our best to program it so that we only impact one season without a field house. And there's just, we attempted to see if there was another way, but it just wasn't going to work out to the benefit of our space or our students. So safety and security has to be number one, and then making sure that we get the best value, but also something we'll be proud of when we're through.
We'll just teach all our student athletes to swim, and then they can just do all their workouts at the pool, and we'll just have very sleek offensive and defensive
There we go.
linemen.
You heard it, Derek. You heard it. Okay. Well, again, this is the potential schedule. We'll be back in. This is just an example. We wanted to kind of give y'all an idea of what's coming. and then allow you all obviously to ask questions. And as we get into the design phase, obviously we'll be back in. You'll hear from us. We're just in the very, very beginning stages of the schematic design. We're excited for sure.
We won't physically start having drawings to look at until August or later. So understand, there's a lot of rolling up sleeves and a lot of talking around a table and a lot of architectural design with an architect and onion paper, which we're already doing. So we're working towards working with our partners and making sure we get what we need.
Brian, I'm just curious, what are construction documents? Like what would that entail?
Yeah, so they're actually the drawings, sorry, I forgot about the mic. They're the drawings that the contractor will build from. So schematic design is sort of big picture, where things are related. Design development is where this goes, where this mic goes, where all of these things go. Construction documents, you don't see a lot of, but that's actually the set the contractor will build the building from.
Okay, so plans, specifications, things like that. Okay.
Plans, specifications, all of that is considered construction documents.
They'll bid it out using those.
I promise you'll get tired of seeing me after that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Our next information item is continuation of our budget development series. Chief Financial Officer, Mrs. Norma Friddle, will present.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Superintendent Carabine. I am back this evening to continue our informational sessions as part of our budget development series. For anyone who may be new to the conversation, we've been on an information campaign over the past few months, sharing topics with our board that all lead up to our budget adoption in June. These sessions are based on a TASB toolkit that I shared with our board back in December called A Guide to Understanding Fundamental School Finance Topics. And I've been walking through that resource with you throughout this series. If you happen to miss any of the earlier topics, you can always go back and watch prior board meetings to get caught up. The goal of these sessions is to bring strong understanding of school finance topics and budget development, not just for the board, but for our community as well. All of these topics are being discussed intentionally and we are in the heart of budget development season. And each of these topics builds on the next as we move toward final budget adoption in June. Here is the TASB toolkit that I've been referencing throughout the series, the resource that our informational sessions have all been based on. An updated version has been placed at your seats for your review. And as I mentioned earlier, we started this work back in December and have been following the table of contents in sequence. And I have been teaching directly from this guide. As you can see in the table of contents, our last informational item focused on VATREs, which you can find on page 16 of this resource. And today we're shifting to staffing considerations and staff planning. So here we are in April moving right along, and this month we are focusing on staff planning and considerations. So when we talk about budget development, it really starts with staffing. Salaries and benefits make up the largest recurring commitment in any district budget. So before we get into supplies or discretionary spending, we have to get our positions right. Anytime we need to add, reduce, or rebalance our budget, staffing decisions are where we see the biggest and fastest impact. That's just the reality of how our budgets are structured. So the bottom line is simple. If staffing makes up the majority of our budget, it has to receive the majority of our planning and efforts. So at the core of staff planning are staffing formulas. These formulas give us a consistent framework of how we allocate staff based on student needs, programs, and campus structures. But building those formulas isn't simple. Some areas, like special education, come with mandates and legal requirements that we have to meet. There's a compliance floor we must maintain to avoid audits or risk our federal funding. On top of that, enrollment can shift quickly, so it's always a balancing act all year long. And even with those challenges, These formulas provide the structure we need, and this is really where the work begins. Once those formulas are in place, that's when we turn to enrollment, because that's really where the process begins to come to life. We work with demographers to project how many students we expect, and that helps us determine how many positions we'll need across the district. Now, while we staff based on enrollment, how we're actually funded depends on attendance, whether students are showing up each day. That's what we call average daily attendance, or ADA. And that is a key driver in our state funding formulas. Those formulas are also shaped by the information we report through PEIMS, which captures the different characteristics and needs of our students. And as we know, not all students require the same level of support. We serve students across a range of programs, like gifted and talented, career and technical education, special education, bilingual, and dyslexia services. Each of those programs comes with additional funding, but also with specific staffing requirements. So when you step back, the foundation of our budget really comes down to two things: how many students we have and what their needs are. Once we understand that, we can align our staffing models accordingly. Speaking of staffing models, this is a good transition into how we manage staff planning and position control. At the core of our budget development process, we have a strong staff planning and position control system. This is what allows us to build our payroll budget with confidence. When that system is clean and well managed, it gives us greater local control and clear position visibility. Our team can see every position in the district, whether it's filled or vacant, whether it's assigned or not, and how it's funded. That level of visibility makes it much easier to manage changes and stay aligned. It also brings cost clarity, and we're not just estimating what we think our payroll budget may look like. Each position has a record tied to it that includes not just the salary, but the full cost of employment, including benefits, which are the most significant costs that we carry beyond compensation. Another key advantage is the reporting capability. Because everything is housed in one system, we're able to generate clear, meaningful reports that can be shared across our campuses and departments. That allows teams to easily review their staff lists, communicate changes to HR, and keep information updated across our district. And finally, we can evaluate staffing and budget scenarios on the front end before finalizing the payroll budget. So I've shared what a strong position control system does. Now I want to talk about why it matters. At the end of the day, this isn't just about systems. It's about supporting our employees and ensuring accuracy in everything that we do. To give you a sense of scale, our payroll team processes between 2,500 and 3,000 employee paychecks every 2 weeks. That includes regular pay, stipends, supplemental pay, everything tied to employee compensation and benefits. At the same time, our business office completes monthly TRS reporting for over 2,600 employees. This is incredibly important work because it directly impacts our employees' retirement. Accuracy here is not optional, it is critical. And on the HR side, our team processes more than 3,000 personnel actions each year. Everything from new hires and transfers to resignations, stipends, and substitute assignment oversight. So when you look at the volume and the level of detail involved here, it becomes clear this is a high volume, high stakes operation. That's why having a strong position control system is so important. It's not just about managing positions, it's about ensuring accuracy, consistency, and accountability. So what does position control actually look like in practice? Mr. Stasny, I believe you asked me this question one day during one of our meetings. So I thought I'd provide a visual here. We have talked about what a staff planning system does and why it matters. So I wanted to show you a quick snapshot from our system in Skyward to bring it to life. What you're looking at here is one screen from our staff planning module. This particular example is a scenario we've built called Base plus Step. where we essentially took our current live HR data and created a working plan from it. One of the strengths of the system is that we can build and compare multiple scenarios or plans. This just happens to be one example. At this point in time, the system was showing 2,523 filled positions and 249 vacancies. And from a budgeting standpoint, we can look at this data in several ways. For example, we can view it by employees or by pay. We can see the full benefit summaries across or compare across different budget versions. So while this is just one snapshot, it gives you a sense of the level of detail and flexibility that we have. And finally, I want to recognize the operational excellence behind all of this work. Each week, our business, HR, and technology teams come together. We call them our Thursday 2 o'clock meetings. And while we joke that we solve the world's problems at our meetings, those conversations truly keep our school district running. I am incredibly grateful for these teams, our HR staff for their care and precision, our technology team for literally building the machine, and our business office, especially payroll, for ensuring that everything runs smoothly. At the end of the day, it's not just about the systems. It's the people behind them that make all of this work. So as we continue moving down the road, we've made some really great progress in our budget development series. We've talked through school bonds, we've touched on VATREs, and we've looked at how staffing fits into the bigger budget picture. In our next session, we're going to shift gears again and focus on revenues and how they fit into that same picture. Now, we have talked about district revenues before, but this session will be a little different. We're going to take a deeper dive and look at what actually moves those revenues, what causes them to shift throughout the year, and why it's important to track certain data points along the way. Of course, no one has a crystal ball when it comes to future funding, but we can ask ourselves some really thoughtful questions to better understand where things may be headed and what that means for the district's financial position. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Can you go back to the slide where y'all solve all the world's problems?
Yes.
One more, there. This, you three departments, and I'm sure you bring other people in when you need to.
Yes.
I'm speaking for myself, but I bet I'm speaking for other people on the board. Knowing the people that run these departments and knowing that you guys get together, you said weekly?
Yes, ma'am.
Is amazing and makes my heart smile as far as taking care of our district, because knowing the people that run these departments and the people that serve our employees in these departments, and knowing y'all are meeting weekly to take care of our people and the money and taxpayers is, I would bet a whole lot of districts don't have these three departments meeting weekly. So thank you. I would learn a lot if I sat and maybe couldn't understand a lot of it, but I would learn a lot if I was in one of these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Waller, for pointing that out. I would also like to echo that as well. The three other districts that I've worked in my career, I've never seen these three specific teams come together and meet this often, and I learned very early on. I'm approaching my 1-year anniversary here, so I'm super excited to share that as well. But I learned very early on that these three key departments here really do keep the district running, and we do solve a lot of issues. We solve issues. It is such a proactive group of people, and we think of things that haven't even happened yet, and all the while, what's the saying? No news is good news. When things are silent, things are running. So I think that speaks volumes to what this team does on a weekly basis.
I also just wanted to say that it's been a little while since the board made the investment in Skyward.
Yes.
for our systems,
Yes,
but I knew that part of the challenge with some of this was just having access to the right data in the right moment. So what I think I hear you saying is that that was a good investment from the standpoint of knowing all the things and being able to make the informed decisions in the moment.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Furto, I just want to commend you on this budget development series. I think it's been informational and a learning experience for each of us. I can speak for myself in that, as a younger board member, a lot of the school finance topics are sometimes new information, and I feel like I've learned a lot, but there's always something new. And I think going through this process with you, whether it's been participation in committees, but truly getting a very in-depth look into our finances and understanding the process it takes to develop a budget has been very helpful and informative. And I think as we go through these topics, whether it's funding sources, allocation of funding, budget, bond, VATRE, we've covered a lot of information. This has been educational, and I think you're doing an outstanding job teaching.
Thank you.
We're not necessarily talking about action here. We're trying to be informed as a board and as staff, and also answer a lot of questions that our community has about these topics and how we handle funding within the district. So I'm appreciative, and thank you for the effort and time you've taken to continue to put this together for us.
And I want to echo that. I was one of the board members who got to attend the strategic planning meeting on finance. And you talk about taking folks from 0 to 60 very shortly. There's just a lot to know about school finance. And you did such a marvelous job of helping folks see the big picture and understanding golden pennies and copper pennies. It's a lot. So thank you so much for all the education you're providing, not just to us, but to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7C, update on the exploration of flexible learning options. Associate Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, Dr. Barbara Ibarra, will present.
Thank you, Mr. Bryan. Thank you, board members. I'm back in the boardroom to provide an update on kind of where we're at in our progress of exploring those options. You may recall in the fall semester, we came into the boardroom and mentioned that we were looking into flexible learning options now that there were some new statutes that gave us much more flexibility to do so. So just as a brief reminder, this is something that's been ongoing in Bryan ISD for a number of years. It dates all the way back to 2009 when the Texas Virtual School Network opened and the district partnered to improve the course options at some of our high schools for certain key courses that maybe we didn't have a certified teacher to teach, or we didn't have enough student interest to pull a class together, but still offering the opportunity for the student to take the class online while at school. Over the years, it has changed in terms of what TEA allows school districts to operate and how they operate. Most notably, during the COVID timeframe, it took a totally different turn. And while we did operate in that manner, I won't say it was the best of both worlds in terms of how things went for students and for faculty. It was certainly a learning curve and certainly unexpected. Since that time, the state has given different guidance on how we can operate those programs, some with sunsetting rules that you could do it for a semester or a year and then they were going to reevaluate. So it wasn't ever firm ground to move forward with a lot of those options. Enter the 89th legislature that just wrapped up last year, and Senate Bill 569. All the words on the screen basically say that now you do have an option as a school district to operate virtual and hybrid programs within your schools without TEA authorization, provided that it's less than 50% of your student enrollment. If you want to operate a separate standalone school, you would need TEA's authorization to operate and to attach attendance to it as well. Because now you can operate it within a program and offer some flexibility to students, perhaps taking one course online or several courses online while also attending in person, you're seeing a launch of these programs across the state. This year alone, you've probably seen announcements on social media, different districts launching online learning academies, virtual school platforms. They're opening enrollment. They're expanding their existing programs. Roughly 200 or more districts are heading that direction right now, and more are projected to once TEA makes the rest of the rules for how to operate. And I'll get to that in just a minute. So why even consider it, right? COVID was a necessary moment to transition into this learning, but it wasn't necessarily the preferred, nor was everyone prepared. Virtual learning doesn't have to be what we experienced during the COVID timeframe. It can be much, much more. It does expand access and increase flexibility for families. Importantly, for our district, we can recruit those students who are currently residing in our district but choose alternative education pathways. They're not enrolled with us. This would give them that flexibility, perhaps, that would draw them in to participate in the district and the district's programs. And then also to retain our current students who are seeking that flexibility. We have had people who are not enrolled reach out to us asking if they could participate or if they could do an online option with us. We didn't have anything at that time to be able to provide that to them. But this is something that would allow us that flexibility should we determine, if the board determines to go that direction. It also positions us to be competitive with other school institutions and agencies across the state who are offering this across the state. So we are investigating and we're exploring and we're learning as we go. We're seeking out those districts who are already operating or expanding their operations to find out their lessons learned and to find out what's working in their environment and their systems that could also work for us should we choose to go that direction. One of the big hurdles is right here on the screen, the parameters from TEA. Now, this just came out from the last legislative session, and as you might expect, they're still developing the rules for it. So basically, the requirements today as they stand are that we must submit information on the virtual courses we will offer to TEA, and it gets uploaded to them, and that students must still take all state assessments as required by the appropriate grade level for that child. Other than that, TEA is working on those operating rules, and they're working on updating the attendance accounting handbook because they've not done that. They're still reflecting the old laws from last year and not the newly adopted ones from this past summer. So all of this to say what we're discussing could change ever so slightly with whatever TEA does develop and what they put out there. So who have we been reaching out to? We launched after the board meeting a brief survey to the community just to see what kind of response we would get. It went out through social media. We had about 700 responses to that little survey, predominantly high school students, although there was a smattering of all grades and ages, but predominantly high school students. And predominantly students looking for a flexible option. Now, do understand that, and I know the board is probably painfully aware of this with all of the comings and goings of our high schools, we do offer flexible options already at our schools. We have early release, we have late arrival for those students that qualify. So that's already embedded in this. This is another way of offering flexibility with online learning. There's also online learning in our partnership with Blend Dual Credit. My daughter's currently in 2 online classes through Blend while enrolled at Rudder High School. So these options are really already out there. This allows us to expand what that looks like in our setting and put the parameters on it that we think are best for our community. We've also worked with the district leadership team, teaching and learning department, our high school principals are weighing in, and then most recently the strategic planning committee for academics gave some feedback on it last Friday. Overwhelmingly, people are interested. They've got lots of questions, lots of what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if the child does this? What if the child isn't successful? And so working through all of the various scenarios of what it could be and what parameters we could put on proactively to ensure, if we move forward with this, a successful launch. So some things that are being explored are the focus for the academy. Overwhelmingly, those that have weighed in want this to be a rigorous, career and college pathway. It needs to have certified teachers, but we also know we can't place that burden on our current teachers. And so we're looking for a preferred provider that could provide Texas certified teachers and the online platform. That is how most of the districts that we've reached out to have started. They've partnered with a provider that provides basically a turnkey solution with the certified teachers, the curriculum, and the learning management system. They operate it, and as the system grows over the years, you can transition to your own teachers teaching the courses. But just thinking of the complexities of a launch year of which kids want which courses and how many kids in a course will make a course presents complexities that would be best suited by a preferred provider. Looking at what course offerings would be available to them, looking at possible hybrid, meaning they would come in person part of the day and possibly online part of the day. We could set parameters over how much was in person and how much was online and what was permissible. Looking at, should it be embedded in the comprehensive high schools? Should it be a standalone? If it's a standalone, we'd have to seek TEA's approval, and we'd have to have enough student interest to build a standalone school separate and apart from the comprehensive high schools. So those are all things that the stakeholder groups are weighing in on, and in particular, the high school administration and the teaching and learning team. When we talk about eligibility, this is one that there seems to be general consensus regarding, that if we moved forward and we focused on 9 through 12, it would be a student who was academically stable enough to learn independently. That would be evidenced by prior grades and assessment data. If they're not currently enrolled with that, I know a number of the schools around here provide the Iowa, which is a comparable assessment that we could utilize in lieu of a state assessment. We could also administer an assessment to determine their eligibility and proficiency for an online learning environment. We would look case by case for students needing special services. Some could certainly be accommodated. Some would be up to the ARD committee if they thought it was an appropriate placement. And then we could also look at how many students are able to do this. There are, again, no rules from TEA right now. We can limit enrollment to a set number of students in this program. We could limit it by campus. We could limit it however we saw fit that we thought would be best for this launch year if we moved forward with it. And we could even scale the scope on it annually to determine if we wanted it to expand further than what it currently was, if it moved forward. Other considerations that have been brought forward and that are also being investigated, partnerships with higher education institutions. Obviously, Blinn is a natural fit. Many of our students take Blinn courses, and in reaching out to them about the viability of that type of a partnership, they noted that many students who are not enrolled with our district but live in the area already take dual credit courses through them for their own educational pathways. So they're already seeking that out, and they'd be more than happy to work with us as well. Looking at the hybrid course offerings, are there certain courses that we would say have to be in person? We've had interest in CTE courses, people wanting to come in for CTE courses, but do all of the other courses online, if that would be possible or not. Implications for UIL. Mr. Rush and Mr. Justice have been reaching out to UIL and talking to other districts to see what those parameters are regarding UIL participation and what that looks like. Initially, and Mr. Rush, I'm going to put you on the spot. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Basically, if you will enrolled in the district and you weren't previously enrolled in the district, you would go to your zoned high school for the virtual academy if this moved forward, and you could participate in UIL activities at that campus. So wherever you live, that's where you're able to participate. Okay, thank you, Mr. Rush. He has educated me well. Parameters for ensuring student success and returning to all in-person learning if they are unsuccessful. Want to make sure there's a safety net there. Making sure we do an orientation for parents as well as for the learner, and that we have progress checks to check on them and make sure they are progressing. Tracking engagement and performance, basically operating procedures for the program. We want to double check our district policies. Are there any that need to be modified in any way if this moved forward? Students would obviously be issued a laptop by the district, but would have to provide their own internet. Those students who did hybrid would provide their own transportation. So there are some complexities. Thankfully, though, there are a number of programs up and thriving across the state of Texas right now, and we have a lot of partners that are willing to talk to us about lessons learned and pros and cons in the decision-making matrix of, do you do this or that? Did you do this or that? Most start small. Most start small, embedded in an existing school system. And then if it moves forward and it takes off more, then they do tend to separate out into a separate TEA school ID number with authorization from TEA. But most start in a very controlled and small way to get your feet on the ground and understand the complexities of operating a virtual or a hybrid program.
Barbara, can I interrupt?
Yes, ma'am.
Question about
Certainly.
that. So I'm going to guess that part of the appeal for some students who are currently not attending our schools but want to do athletics or CTE or those types of things would be that they want to come do that. But if what you said is true, where, okay, they're attending the school that they are zoned for, they're doing part of it in person, they're doing part of it virtually. If you then go to the model where you have a virtual school, how do you reconcile the
They
athletics?
would still go where they're zoned to participate.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So just for example, my middle child went to Bryan Collegiate for his freshman year, but he really wanted to run cross country. And so he went to Bryan High School to run cross country while he was attending collegiate. Ultimately, he decided cross country was more important to him, and he left poor Mr. Roberts. I'm sorry, you got one graduate from there. So that is, you go back to where you're zoned.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question. Okay, so next steps. Continued feedback from stakeholders. At the strategic planning meeting last week, we had a great recommendation from one of the members to seek out those families who aren't currently enrolled and visit with them, do a focus group. What would bring them into the district? What are they looking for in an experience for their child? And is that something that we can offer through any one of these pathways or programs? If we decide that we think it is a viable option and we're able to find a provider or a partner that meets all of the needs for academic integrity, for course selection, for certified teachers, then the next step would be to bring that provider to the board for consideration of a contract authorization. Typically, the providers are charging roughly, it's a vague estimate, about $3,000 a year for a full-time enrolled student in their program, which is doable given the ADA that we would receive and the basic allotment of $6,215. So it would be a viable option in that sense, but it has to be a great partner and provider in terms of the rigor and depth of the curriculum and the experience for the students.
So we absorb all the costs. The student, there's no cost to the student.
Correct. Just like any other student enrolled in the district, there are no other fees for them.
In the ADA piece,
Yes, ma'am.
because they're in a virtual program, how?
It's actually a little more simplistic now because they're in a virtual program. The current rules are that they must show progress or a login each day into the learning management system, and that is full day ADA.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am. Thus, many districts are seeking this out as a viable solution, just because there are a lot of kids in flexible learning already in our schools and also at home, but not attending our schools. So that piece of it would actually allow us to collect full-time ADA on those students if they make progress each day. So we'll work on draft procedures. We'll seek out what that could look like, possibly a marketing campaign, and just get the information together so that you have everything you need to make an informed decision. But I greatly would love any feedback and questions you have, so I make sure that we prepare for those answers if we bring it back to you for consideration.
So Barbara, go back one.
Yes, ma'am.
So the last two, when I look at that, that's going to cut out a lot of students that probably may need this program, that qualify for this program, but have to rely on transportation because parents are working or whatever that might be, and the internet. So, and I'm not saying it's a bad program, I'm not saying anything about that, but I'm just saying a lot of students that could probably benefit from that probably won't be able to take part of that.
It is possible, although we have found that most of our students do have access to the internet, and even public internet locations that also help for them. The transportation, if they chose to be hybrid, would be the trickiest piece. It's certainly conceivable that they could, if their class that was in person was first period, they could take a bus to school like everybody else. The problem would be getting back home afterwards, and so arrangements would have to be made for that.
And are we considering this for fall 26 rollout?
We absolutely could. It is a possibility. Not a have to, but it could.
What did you say a while ago about what it takes to get the full ADA?
The student would have to log into the program, into the learning management system, and click a button that says they were there
Each
Okay.
day.
each day.
Is that considered progress or just?
It is.
Okay.
According to the current definitions by TEA, that is considered progress.
I'm guessing that will change at some point.
TEA rulemaking still happening, so.
That's, the interesting thing is, even though they approved this and everyone is starting to do this, they haven't declared all the rules yet. So here we go, trying to navigate it without a rule book on it. But I know that the community asked in one of our other meetings about, is this for just the students living in the Bryan ISD attendance zone at this point?
So right now, policy only allows for districts or students living in the zone right now. I think it does keep it cleaner for a launch year if it were to go forward, just to remove those complexities with UIL, that you go where you're zoned and you participate where you're zoned. We can certainly, and you will see many of the districts have gone statewide. When they launch their virtual school, it is open to anybody in the state. You just have to come in and test. So it is possible to do that, and it's completely the discretion of the board as to whether or not you want to change that policy.
And I recall another question was, there's basically two groups of kids. Some are not enrolled at all. Maybe they're in homeschool, private school, charter school, et cetera. Or they may be one of our students in our classroom today that may want to consider doing something along these lines.
You know, Ms. Carabine, that's an excellent point. We want to retain our students, and when they have choice, we need to make sure we're competitive with the choices that they have before them. And so that is one of the concerns, making sure that we are offering to our students what other educational institutions are offering to our students, so that we keep our kiddos and we're able to help them in our own district.
Do you want to elaborate? I know that your department has talked about the profile of a student that would be best suited and most successful.
Yes, ma'am.
Because we don't want people to think, well, let's all just go join the virtual school. We want there to be integrity so that we can protect the integrity with teaching and learning in our classrooms.
Yes, and go back up here to the eligibility. This is not, this is a rigorous college and career-focused academy proposal. This is a student who can learn independently, who has the discipline to learn independently, who will seek questions and guidance when they need help. While they may be participating in these courses asynchronously, there are always live office hours with certified teachers in that course. And so if they were to have struggles, it's someone who would seek out the information they need. It's also somebody who can stay on track. And so basically, when we talk about that part of it, that's why that orientation for the parent and the student is so important, so they truly understand what is being asked of them as they go into this particular learning scenario. And then also that their past academic history shows that they can do and they can be successful, and they have that baseline to build from so that they don't lose ground in trying something new, but are able to maintain a high level of academic performance and rigor.
And I wasn't here when collegiate launched, but I'm sure that when we considered that model, there were concerns
Yes,
and
ma'am.
questions about would this work. You know, from a higher ed perspective, higher ed has certainly gotten on board with these approaches that allow people flexibility in
Yes,
how
ma'am.
they're doing things. And, you know, as someone who's taught online classes at the undergrad and the grad level, it is different, but it can be just as rigorous and it can be appropriate for the right kinds of learners. So I'm excited to see us exploring this.
Thank you.
And we'll see
We'll
where
see.
it lands.
And I'm excited that you've worked with the extracurriculars, athletics, CTE, and fine arts, because there are students who may not be in our school district right now for whatever reason that could do their core content, et cetera, in a virtual setting, but then come in for the athletic period, show up after school, compete in our games, march in our bands, take a welding class. So it sounds like you guys are exploring everything along those lines as well.
And that was one of the feedback comments from the academic strategic planning group last week, that initially they're like, oh, it's new, and they were just kind of understanding what the scope would be. But once they started thinking about capturing some of those people who live in our school zones but aren't coming to Bryan ISD for personal reasons, whatever they may be, they became very interested in recruitment. And then also keeping their kids and keeping them in our district. Again, I mentioned my own kiddos and other kiddos are currently taking online courses through Blinn, and they have early release, and they've got the credits, and there are things that would be a good fit for a number of students and keep them in Bryan ISD. So exploration and certainly more information to come, and would love any other feedback you have or questions you have.
When we start talking about a physical location or the potential need for a physical location, that would be, I guess if you had a hybrid learner and we had absorbed the responsibility to run the program, to teach it and staff it, that would likely call for a facility, most likely. Is that kind of the line of thinking?
Not necessarily. If they were going to be a hybrid learner, they'd have to be operating within one of the comprehensive high schools. If they were going to be fully virtual, they would come online only. So if they, for example, wanted to be, if it was his own school and it was his own TEAID number, but I still wanted to take a welding course, well, I can go take one course over at CTEC, and that's no problem, or at Rudder High School, or at Bryan High School. But my home campus is still the virtual school. So you can still do that without having to duplicate facilities or to have any facilities separate and apart from. The one caveat to that would be state assessments. We would likely use a room like this for state assessments where they could take them together on that date so that we didn't disrupt a campus setting. But other than that, it would be through the comprehensive schools for the hybrid aspects of it. State assessments would have to be here. Did that answer your question, sir?
I guess the necessity of a physical location based on everything we've discussed is probably not necessary.
I don't think so.
At any point?
No, other than for those moments where you need to have trainings or you have parent meetings, something like that, we could use existing buildings. When we've reached out to other districts, they do not have a physical building for their virtual schools if they have a separate school for it. They may have a department in a building such as this that works with those students, and they may have the students come in and visit with them, but a separate facility, most are not doing that. I haven't found one yet. It's early. It's only first year.
Midway? I saw something out of Waco.
Waco did announce recently that they were launching one. We've not visited with them yet.
That'd be interesting.
You could do it, but you don't have to. There's a lot of choose your own adventure in developing what this looks like and customizing it to the community, to the needs, and to the facilities you already have. You certainly can do that.
Well, I think it's important to be open-minded through all of this, so thank you.
It's a lot of new.
Yeah, there's,
Thank you.
And just think, you did this literally, well, all of you did this overnight when it came to COVID.
Yes, well, we
You were
did.
in front of the building passing out laptops and cords and hooking
Launching a
up to the
learning management
internet.
system in 2 weeks, yes.
Man,
Most fun we've ever
we
had.
remember.
It's a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're up again.
Yeah, I'm next.
Dr. Barbara Ibarra will now present the update on state assessment changes for 27-28 and future grade point average calculation rules from the TEA.
Thank you, Mr. President. So this is new and different from the last legislative session. And if you haven't already heard, they demolished and dissolved the STAR testing, the STAR assessment across the state, and are implementing a new program in 27-28. So I thought I'd give you a high-level overview of what the current rulemaking is looking like. Much like the last presentation, TEA is still developing this. So information may change as we progress. But just a little bit of a recap of where we've been. As you well know, 2017 to 2022, we were on STAR 1.0 and the new rating system A through F 1.0. Then enter the 22-23 school year, where the test had been rewritten to include technology-enhanced items. They implemented writing in every subject. And they changed the test but didn't change the name, so we affectionately refer to it as STAR 2.0. They also changed the A through F system and the cut points and the metrics and the calculations. In fact, so much so that, if you guys remember, there's a little red marker there, that the state of Texas released that it is possible for a campus with an A in 2022 to improve in 23 and yet still receive a B, a lower rating. The commissioner even put out a video explaining how the new A through F system, you should expect at least one letter grade dropping for our districts across the state, and that held true. So as you look back over the course of Bryan ISD's performance, in 2022 under STAR 1.0, we were an 86. We actually had improved graduation rates, college career readiness in 2023, but received a full letter grade lower. The same trend continued all the way through 2025, where we again had higher graduation rates, higher career and college readiness, and higher student growth, the highest number of distinctions we've ever received, which was 39, and still received a 76, which would have been a B on the 1.0 system. All that to say, we are now moving forward. We are 1 year away. In 27-28, the new assessment will be called the Student Success Tool, SST, and STAR will be no more. We'll see how long that one is in place, but they are changing the name of the assessment, and they're changing how it's assessed. So just taking a look at that briefly, SST, as it's being called, will begin in 27-28 and will include 3 times a year assessments for students. So beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. What's important to note here is that the beginning of the year assessment and the middle of the year assessment, those are both adaptive, meaning depending on how a student responds to the question, it'll either increase the rigor of the next question or it will lower the rigor, trying to ascertain the level of proficiency of the student given the certain content that's in front of them. However, the end of year assessment is static or criterion reference. It is not adaptive. It is over the standards only, and it does not change, the rigor is not changed based on how the student responds. The end of the year assessment will be used for accountability purposes under the A through F system. The beginning of the year and the middle of the year, after several years, they believe they will be able to come up with growth measures on through the year testing and incorporate that into the A through F system after they've done some additional modeling, having all of the data sets.
Does everybody get the same test when it's the static assessment?
For the static assessment, yes, sir. They all get the same one.
So even though they're not all moving at the same rate on the adaptive, then all of a sudden they're all hit with the same thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir. That is absolutely accurate.
Makes perfect sense.
Yes, that's absolutely accurate. Additionally, under the legislation, the English 2 assessment was removed at the high school level. So English 2 EOC will no longer be required beginning in the 27-28 school year. It's required for the 26 year and the 26-27 school year. But in 27-28, those kids who have been moving through the system no longer need to pass English 2. It just goes silently into the night and will fall off of the accountability radar, so to speak. So that means for your high schools, There'll be three assessments at the freshman level and one at the junior level. And those will be the only assessments they take from the state. High school through the year testing is not required, but it is required for grades 3 through 8. So what do I mean by that? So for BOY and MOY, those assessments, BOY being beginning of the year, will take place in late August, early September. And it is important to note that it will be shorter in length than a traditional STAR test. All of them will be. Middle of the year is January 2nd to February 21st. And then the end of year will actually be in May. So currently, STAR assessments are in April, so they'll get pushed back to May. The same is true for the high school. Now, if you know anything about high schools in May, they are busy places with AP and IB testing, along with now STAR testing. But remember, it's mostly going to be freshmen and then a group of juniors, right? So it's going to be a little bit different population.
Will we have any flexibility on like when we give these tests, or
Yes.
is the state going to say these are the testing?
They're going to give us a window like they do right now. It's usually a 2-week window. I think they're shortening that somewhat, but it's projected to be a shorter window, but a window of time nonetheless for us to give the assessment. They also say with the SST, scores will be reported back to the district within 2 days following the closure of the window. Interestingly enough, they are separating out writing as a separate assessment again, and it will be April 1st through the 15th each year. So we're guessing that's all grades, thinking that's what's going to be since they blended writing into all of the grades right now. But that will be separated out under the new assessment. There'll still be an alternative assessment for students with disabilities, appropriate to the ARD committee's recommendation. All of this is still being developed, and I will say I'm very thankful. Dr. Jill Morris is on the statewide accountability team with TEA, providing recommendations on the calculations in the A through F system. So we tend to get a little bit more information through her participation and leadership on that statewide committee. But this is what seems to be steady and repetitive from that group, that this is what we can expect to see. So more will come on that, but I bring it up because we've got the completion of this year and next year. And then right after that, we are in SST. So the final year of STAR is upon us, which is next year, and then we switch to a new state assessment and new A through F calculations. They're saying right now that they will use statistics to carry over the cut points that we're currently experiencing under the new assessment and just overlay them and apply them.
And it says cut scores must be published in advance of the assessment. Duh.
Well, they've not done that before, so we're excited. So, it'll be lovely to see that. Right now, they publish it after the assessment is done, what the scale score and cut points will be.
Have they said anything about the writing like, I know one of the contentious points now is that the writing's embedded, but they're also using AI to do the grading. So I assume we're not going to get the writing stuff back within 2 days.
I don't think we'll get that back within 2 days, but they did introduce, again, it's still in development, they did introduce automatic rescoring at no charge to the district. So
Is that in place now for the current STAR?
It is not.
Didn't think so.
It is not. If we want them rescored, we pay to have them rescored. If it ends up that they did change the score, they give us the money back.
And it's like $50?
Yes, ma'am, per test. Mm-hmm.
Per kid.
And we teach our kids not to write dirt, to say soil.
Yes, that was actually one of the sticking points on the last assessment. Yes, ma'am. It's great memory. Any questions about SST before I move into the grade point average rules that are
One quick
coming
question.
out?
Have they made any decisions about a hold harmless year? Back in the day, we had that
Yep.
1 year to figure it out, no harm, no foul. And then most recently, there was not a hold harmless, which triggered all the court injunctions, et cetera.
Excellent question. No, because they say they can move the cut points and make it just as rigorous and fair from the current assessment to the new assessment. They are not planning on a hold harmless year.
So how can they move the cut point ahead of time if
Before they're piloted.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Those are all great questions.
I feel the need to say,
Yes, ma'am.
you use the word fair. The word I would choose to say is that the current system, both accountability on students and on school districts, is not equitable or fair.
Or transparent at times.
It's abysmal.
Yes.
So I'm glad to see them walking back some of these really challenging decisions for school districts, but that we have to live with it really for 2 years is unconscionable.
Well, and it's also frustrating, to your point, while they say the system A through F 2.0, 3.0, whatever, it still changes throughout that time frame. The greatest example is college and career military readiness. What does it mean to be college and career ready? That calculation has changed annually with sunsetting industry-based certifications, with you must complete a course sequence. We know you have the certification, but you didn't finish the courses that we thought you should finish. Even though you passed the certification, we're not going to count you. So there's a lot of frustrations over that methodology changing repeatedly over the years.
It's moving targets for us and our kids constantly. How do we help kids figure out how to meet the mark and be successful? All while we are launching as a state, what do we call it? The educational savings account, the vouchers.
Yes, ma'am.
With zero accountability. So the bar continues to move for us in terms of how do we get kids where they need to be. Moving targets, not equitable systems, no transparency of systems, and there will be no accountability on the other side of that while they're awarding more money. So it's very frustrating. And if our community isn't frustrated by that, I feel like folks are not informed. If you're informed, you're frustrated.
Agreed. I think one of the frustrating items regarding the CCMR, students in high school don't always know what their path is ahead, and they change their minds. This is the time of your life where you get to change your mind. And so you may start a pathway in career and technical education, and you're like, it's just not for me. And so then you switch. Well, under this system, the district wouldn't receive points in terms of college and career readiness because they didn't complete the pathway. They didn't finish that pathway. They may obtain another certification, but they didn't do enough credits to obtain the credit for accountability purposes. But the right thing by the child is to let them choose. And so that's where we struggle with making sure that we're preparing students to walk the stage and walk into life, having experienced enough different things to know what they like and what they dislike. And then also being successful on an accountability system that's ever changing.
Well, I would encourage our legislators to learn a little bit about career development theories and how young people progress psychologically through these things.
Yeah.
It is not only to be, it's not just going to happen, it's to be expected that people engage in something and then change their mind as they learn more about it. I work with a lot of graduate students now, and they experience that as 20-something-year-olds. So to expect 13, 14, and 15-year-olds to know their plans is really quite silly.
It is a challenge for sure.
Are the first two tests, to your knowledge, strictly kind of a benchmarking? Are those test results also going to be somehow inputted into how scores are going to be developed?
That's a great question, Mr. Stasny. So right now, the early guidance from TEA is that initially they will not be a part of the accountability system in the first 2 years. But after 2 years of providing those assessments and gathering the data, they hope to include in the accountability system a through the years growth measure. Some are foreshadowing it could take the place of TIA assessments and what districts are currently doing, but they also want to incorporate it in, that's teacher incentive allotment for qualification purposes of teachers. But they do want to include when the student tests at the beginning of the year, this was their academic level, and at the end of the year, how much did they grow? And that somehow would also be included in the accountability system, in addition to end-of-year assessment to end-of-year assessment growth. So looking at 2 growth opportunities in the future.
Yeah, because what prompted my question was certainly the potential value of that in terms of, because given the choice between just raw testing and growth, we would, I think, want to see growth.
We want to see growth, no matter who the kid is, that's right.
And of course, it also I don't know how we measure progress for children that are clearly at risk and are struggling for whatever reason. I don't know if they'll ever find a way to truly put a value on how hard it is how much work goes into trying to bring out the best of that child. And that may be impossible, and I've always thought it probably is to really objectively value that. But if somehow they can bring that into the equation, wouldn't that be great to actually recognize that some of our hardest working teachers are the ones that are thrilled when they can get that much progress out of a young child who is has so many struggles in life.
To your point, Mr. Stasny, I do think the state has done a good job of recognizing that in the past couple of years in changing how they calculate student growth from end of year to end of year. Growth is given in half-point increments now, as well as full-point increments for a student who perhaps did not pass the test in the prior year. But this year, they didn't pass, but they got a certain level higher, and they do award a half-point of growth. And if they do pass, they get a full point of growth. And so they are starting to recognize that and build that into the accountability system and structure. Again, going back to your point earlier, every student can grow, regardless of your proficiency level. Those that are struggling to those that are high achieving, every child deserves a year's worth of growth from the teacher that is serving them. And if they're putting forth effort, we want to make sure that's happening for them as well. But I do think that it's a better case now that it's embedded in there. It's still hard, but at least there's some opportunity in there for half-point growth as well.
That's good to hear.
Can you remind us the testing, so it says 3 through 8 and EOC. So is it every grade level between 3 through 8, or is it periodic?
Every grade level.
And then EOC.
Are just those 4 tests now.
Which are 3-year at freshman.
Algebra 1, Biology and English 1, and then U.S. History.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have some control over when we're asking students to take those classes, so we might consider doing something a little different.
That actually was brought up by one of our high school principals very recently. Yes, ma'am.
So the state thinks that boy, moi, and oi are going to be the best thing that ever happened to standardized testing.
You know, back, I think it was even pre-COVID, the legislature convened the Texas Council on Next Generation Assessments, and they grabbed a group of stakeholders from across the state, and this was their recommendation to move to through-the-year testing. And so it looks like it's coming to fruition under the latest legislative session.
Well, they keep stressing boy, moi, and oi, and so somebody thinks that that's really important.
Yes.
Instead of, at the beginning, at the middle, and at the end. But I guess I'm just old-fashioned.
Well, and they're still making rules. We historically have gotten star-released assessments every year on what those look like, and we can see, okay, well, how do they ask the questions so that we can learn from what students are being asked to do and ensure that our instruction is tailored to make sure that they're able to answer questions at that level. They're saying at this point, the BOI and MOI assessments, they will not be releasing any questions from those testing decks, but they do anticipate releasing questions from the EOI, the static assessment. But it'll be after the fact, not before, obviously. So you're going to Mrs. Carabine's point, you're going into a new assessment somewhat blind, which is why we typically ask for a hold harmless year, while we understand what's being expected of our students so that we can make sure that they're prepared for it. So we'll see as it moves forward what new information comes out. Today, this is about the majority of the facts that we have on the new assessment at this point.
And this is just about the time that funding for vouchers. Oh, don't get me started, but, it's all relative.
Yes, ma'am. Also related to the last legislative session, there is a new development that is evolving. This is from Senate Bill 1191, and it is the calculation of the high school grade point average. The legislative session asked the commissioner to develop a standard method for calculating grade point average for the state of Texas. The commissioner has recently released those rules, and they are published, but it doesn't necessarily give you all of the detail you need to interpret the application of what those rules mean, and I'll explain here more in just a moment. So we're in rulemaking right now. It's open through April 20th, and they would apply to the 7th graders who enter 7th grade in the 27-28 school year. As the board is aware, whenever you do grade point average, you have to start with the first time a child takes a high school assessment, which is typically 7th grade is the earliest, and then it has to stay static until that cohort graduates. So the 27-28 school year will be implementing the new GPA calculation for that group of students while simultaneously aging out the older system that's currently in place. This will apply to the class of 2033. So here are the rules. This is the extent of the depth of the rules. It basically says that all AP, IB, on-ramps, which is a dual credit, and non-CTE courses receive weights that are equal to another, meaning I can't weight an IB course higher than an AP course or a dual credit course. They all must be the same weight. That's not a major change for us. CTE and dual credit courses receive a weight that is less than the weight of AP and IB courses. So that's going to be a change for many districts. Many of our industrial engineering that are CTE project lead the way courses receive weight. Under these rules, they would not receive weight, equal to AP or IB, that is. But honors courses can receive additional weight that is determined locally if the district offers honors courses. But again, the question is it equal to or less than the AP, IB, and the CTE? So, and does it apply to, there are just a lot of questions with the rulemaking that's happening right now. We are watching it. We are submitting questions back to the commissioner's rules, just inquiring about what they mean by certain phrases within this, because like all other districts, we'll have to determine what that looks like for cohort 2033 and how their ranking class and GPA would be calculated under these new provisions.
And aren't they trying to make it easier to compare students?
That's exactly
between
right.
School districts, but they're not providing the guidance to tell us what these weights should be.
And they're not explicitly stating that all courses should be or could be included. You can exclude courses. It doesn't go into the depth to explain those intricacies. That's exactly why they're trying to do it. They took an attempt at it. I'm certain they're getting lots of feedback. So
we could name,
really, not just from us. So we'll see if there are any revised rules that come out, and of course bring that back to you for any feedback that we receive from them.
So we could name any course that we want to, this
Honors.
an honors course.
But it has to meet the definition of what we would refer to as rigorous or has depth and complexity, et cetera.
Yes,
Yeah,
above and beyond the traditional
Yeah,
course.
You have to defend the integrity of the advanced courses. This is going to cause radical change across the state. Many school districts determine GPA very differently, and as we all know, it defines rank and class, which determines college admissions, scholarships, et cetera. This is a really big change unfolding here for us. So it'll be very interesting to see how they respond based on all the questions coming from across the
I
state.
can only imagine the inbox to that email account.
Yeah, it's very, I know if you've only looked at Bryan ISD, ours is not that complicated, but it's vastly different than what happens in some other districts. This could be really interesting to watch unfold.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, that's all I have for you this evening, is foreshadowing things to come with the information we have today, but happy to answer any other questions you might have.
So Barbara, what's your middle name?
Anna.
So you would be boy. No, you would be Barbara.
I'm
you are
bae.
Bara. So, yeah, you just,
Did you say Ann?
Anna. I know Beach Boys. My dad really loved the
Barbara
Beach Boys.
Ann.
It is my theme song, thank you, yes.
sorry, I just couldn't help.
My dad was a huge Beach Boys fan, yes.
That's going to be your walk-up song from
It
now on.
is, that's right. And now that we're all singing that song in our head, thank you very much.
We can't
Thanks,
unhear it.
Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7E, overview of campus and department budget informational sessions. As Norma Friddle will present.
Interestingly enough, it's Barbara Ann's birthday, so yesterday was her
Yes.
birthday.
Oh.
So, yeah, so
Yay.
Barbara Ann had a birthday. So,
She's a-
I tried to give her a present.
Easter
and-
baby.
Earlier, and she would
Yeah,
not take.
Miss Waller has a present.
yeah,
Yes.
I don't think, should we give it, no? Okay, well, no. Well, we're excited to share tonight, so I appreciate all the hard work. We hit the ground running. Today we had staff development. I don't know how many of y'all did. We went around to almost every campus in the district, starting early this morning and then in 30-minute increments, doing the presentation that you're going to see. And this is a long history of really involving our staff in this entire process. We saw coming out of COVID, what was happening in the financial future of the district. And so we involved them from the ground up. And in many cases, they could lead this conversation and they remember the slides, and our entire staff is becoming more aware, more consciously aware, and more active, I think, in this overall process, which I'm thankful for. And so as we look at this budget feedback, it'll look familiar to you, but even folks maybe joining us at home, they will have seen these slide decks before. But again, it's so overwhelming, as you pointed out, Mr. Bryan, that we've got a great teacher, and we're thankful for that as we go out, because they're thanking us, they're becoming active, as I've already mentioned, and they're owning it, which we appreciate their part in this decision-making. So we're going to take just a few minutes to talk through some things. Number one, our budget goals. You know this, we want to support high-quality instruction and resources. We want to retain and recruit a high-quality work staff, maintain a healthy fund balance. That's pivotal. And then we clearly want to have safety and security in all of our buildings and for our children. And that not only extends to the physical, but the mental. We want to make sure the entire child is taken care of. You've seen this across the district. The reason we point this out across the state is it's really a statewide issue or problem, and we'll explain what we mean by that, and you're aware of it. But these are headlines that honestly are popping up all the time, and I won't read them to you, but you can see districts that have significant challenges ahead of them. They're coming at the deficit, the shortfalls in other districts in interesting ways. They're closing campuses. In some cases, they're charging for resources or even transportation. They're cutting all programs in various ways, and we have not done that in Bryan ISD. We have not done that. Again, having the foresight of the board and really past CFOs, everyone allowed us to really see into the future and try to make changes. That doesn't neglect the fact that we've had to make some really difficult decisions as we've gone along. Here's the second round, and you can see really there's not a district that isn't being impacted by our current funding formula in the way that rolls out and the way that it impacts us. And so you can see Austin, 20 million, Mesquite, 24, Katy, 29, Denton, 15, Grapevine having issues as well. So it's ongoing. There really isn't a part of Texas that is not being impacted by this.
Thank you, Dr. Merrill. I do want to echo the piece about how our staff are really connected to this process. We actually went to a few campuses today. We launched our budget roadshow officially today. So, so far so good. I think we've gotten some really good, some positive feedback. Once again, I really do believe it's because we are walking this process with them. We're not doing it to them. We are doing it with them. So I think this presentation will speak to that as well. So we really began with a lot of teach pieces here. A lot of it was reminder, as Dr. Merrill said. They have seen these slides before, and in some cases they can even teach it back to us. So We started with the teach piece. We talked about our operating budget here, our local funds. We talked about what that means. It's our operating budget. We basically use it to fund all of our day-to-day expenses. We talked about why our fund balance is important. It's tied to our financial accountability score. Just as we have a score on the academic side, we have a financial score on the finances as well. So we talked through that importance. We also talked about the difference of bond funds and how that is completely a voter-driven process, completely different bank account for a completely different and separate purpose. So we use that fund. It is completely tied to our debt service fund. We buy capital outlay, large technology items, school business, school buildings, renovations, buses, et cetera. And then we talked about grant funds and how they supplement the general fund. They do tend to come with a lot of red tape. Those funds are earmarked for specific projects. So we talked about how those grant funds actually supplemented the general fund. And then, of course, we can't have a financial presentation without our famous cup here. One of the things that we really outlined here was that local property taxes are used to fill the funding cup first, and then anything that is remaining, the state actually fills in the remaining of that cup. We also emphasize that our funding has been stagnant since 2019, and we have not received any significant increases to that. We'll talk through a little bit more about those increases here in a little bit. So it is very important to note that that $6,215 per student amount is based on 100% attendance. So we're going to see the impacts of that and our attendance and what it has been across the district here lately. So of course we know that we staff on enrollment, but we are funded on attendance. And here is our cup, and again, we just, one of the common misconceptions that we have and that we talked through was just because we have a lot of growth and development coming to our area, we see a lot of apartment complexes, residential housing, it doesn't necessarily mean that the school district receives additional funds. It just simply means that the state contributes less. And this slide was also part of our budget roadshow last year, and it was used to illustrate the historical struggle that we have been experiencing since 2017. We have all felt the effects of our double-digit inflation, not only on, when we go to the grocery store, normal inflation, but we have certainly felt it on the medical side as well. Here, we've also emphasized that our budget deficit is unfortunately up to about $5 million. So it's very important to remind everyone that the same pot that pays for compensation pays for medical claims as well. So we reinforce to everybody that, where we choose to get our care actually matters and it actually impacts our bottom line. But I am happy to report that we are making some positive progress here in this area. So we did share that progress as well. One of the new kind of things that we shared also is we are getting a new freestanding emergency room is coming to our area here in Bryan. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the old Caprock building out by Target. Okay, so we have a new freestanding emergency room. So once again, we emphasize to our staff that, or we talked about the differences between urgent care and actual freestanding ERs and made them, and just reminded everyone that only use freestanding ERs for actual true emergencies, and we just reminded them of the budget and financial impact if they didn't. So went through those changes as well. Okay. And here, this is just an illustration. Again, no change in the basic allotment or no significant change in the basic allotment since 2019. You can see there some of the examples of the double-digit inflation that we have experienced, property insurance alone, and of course, we talked about that health insurance as well. So I think this illustrates that point and drives that home very clearly. And one of the allotments, or one of the things that you hear a lot are examples of underfunded mandates or unfunded mandates. We shared this with our audience. These are two very clean and clear examples of what we mean by having underfunded or unfunded mandates here. So you can see that the transportation allotment that we receive is about $1.6 million. If we were to actually look into our Skyward system right now and we would look to see what our transportation budget is, it would be about $8.4 million. So this is a clean, these two items here are clean and clear examples of how much we receive from the state versus how much the program actually costs to run. So the allotment for basic costs, this is another point I also wanted to drive home. The allotment for basic costs that we received from House Bill 2 was $1.6 million. That $1.6 million was supposed to be used for any increases that we have experienced since 2019. So although we were very appreciative and very grateful for that pass-through. You've heard me say this before, but $1.6 million is like throwing a glass of water at a burning house. So very grateful that we received the money, but certainly not nearly enough what we need. So combining record inflation with the end of ESSER funds and the very small $55 that we received for our basic allotment equals statewide financial challenges. And this is certainly not a surprise. We have been driving this message home over and over, and this is the message that we are driving home with our staff across the district so that they understand the combination of these things is this is what we get.
I wish I knew what the thinking was on a lot of the things the legislature does, because even when it doesn't make any sense, you kind of don't know, was there any kind of logic? Do you have any clue, anybody, about why we're so ridiculously underfunded on the transportation? We are, well, I don't know, even if we weren't required to do, run the buses, I guess we would do that anyway because we owe it to the ones that need the transportation. But we are required to provide the transportation or not? Or could we just say, well, we're going to do away with our bus system?
We are actually only, and this is not the answer that anybody wants to hear, we are actually only required to provide transportation to our special ed students.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So they're basically saying to us that since you don't really have to do it, well, we're going to grossly underfund you. Is that kind of the deal? I mean, that's sort of what it sounds like.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
Well, and some districts are passing that on to the students. I mean, so if you
some are
live,
charging,
yeah, they're charging, if you live 10 miles or 2 miles or doesn't matter, you have to pay to every person in the district pays to ride their buses.
Some districts elect to have like a minimum mile radius. Like, let's say, I remember when I came from Comal, if you lived anywhere within the 2 miles of the school district, you didn't qualify, so.
Well, it's just, that's a huge number. And we're, obviously struggling with a deficit that, kind of coincidentally gets real close to that. If we were fully funded on our transportation, we'd be in a heck of a lot better shape, wouldn't we? So I'm just, that's kind of gone on year after year. I guess we kind of let it go because we weren't dying, and now we're, gasping for air, and it's just crazy. So I guess I just wanted to make sure that got out. Anybody who wants to listen to this recording or live or whatever, you can see this, including our legislators. It's about time that they got serious about whether they give a flip about busing students or not, because it is a tremendous benefit and it's a tremendous expense. And it's just, despite the enormous surplus that the state had, they blew us off again,
Yes.
to be blunt.
Thank you, sir.
Well, and coupled with that, if you didn't offer the transportation, we're funded based on attendance. How would that go for us?
Sure.
It's a double-edged sword right there, right? So let's talk about those statewide issues. We've said that, as Dr. Merrill opened and shared the news stories, and as Mrs. Friddle shared, that all districts are struggling with this. Well, it's obviously a systems issue if everyone's having a similar issue, correct? So why is that happening? And it goes back to Mr. Stasny, your point about the legislature. So if we go back in time, we are real careful to share this with our staff members because they're focused on our students. They're not always focused on the legislature, but they need to be aware and informed about what's happening at the legislative level because it's impacting their daily experience and what they're able to do for their kids. So in the 22-23 school year, that was the year that the 88th legislature met and vouchers were introduced as a top priority of the governor. It did not pass and the session ended. Going into the second year of the biennium in 23-24, the governor called 4 special sessions. They're not required, they weren't supposed to meet that year, but they called 4 special sessions up through December of that year, again asking for vouchers to be considered. It did not pass. And I think the phrasing there and the headlines were, if it didn't pass, then the public schools weren't going to get any changes in the finances. And so $4.5 billion in surplus was held at the state level and not dispersed to schools in any way, shape, or form. In the 24-25 school year, after a new election and new representatives took over the legislature, we did see a shift in the legislation. Vouchers, educational savings accounts were passed by the legislature, and in doing so, they also provided some additional funding for school systems. The increase in the basic allotment went up by $55, although, as you all remember, just to combat inflation, we did $1,300. It's also the same year that the ESSER funding from the federal government ceased, which was the supposed fiscal cliff that all districts would face. But the state also did approve, as the board knows, the teacher retention allotment. We'll talk about that more in just a moment. The current school year is the second year of the biennium, and we point this out to all of the campuses and departments because it's important for them to understand there's no new funding or revenue coming from the state this year. We're in the second year, they are not scheduled to meet, so it will be static at this point. It is exactly what we currently are under. It is not projected to move in any way, shape, or form. So much so that it won't change potentially until 26-27 when the legislature begins meeting again in January and will conclude in the spring semester, which means you won't see any additional funding possibilities until the 27-28 school year. Also the SST year, just so we're remembering that, okay? So all of that's coming forward means that when our board adopted the budget in June, you took some bold action to take care of our employees and to take care of the school system itself. While we only got $55, we did not get the $1,300. The board went forward with the teacher retention allotment for all teachers. When we do our presentations, we always ask, how many of you have 1 or 2 years teaching experience? And they raised their hands and we said, the state gave us no money to increase your salary. The board gave us money to increase your salary by $2,500. And then we ask, who here is not a teacher? We say, well, they didn't give us much for you. They gave us the staff retention allotment, which is $45 a student, which equates to roughly $560,000 for the district. That would equate to basically $350 in raises for a year for each person who's a non-teaching position.
Wow, jackpot.
Yes, right? And we said our board thought that was also unacceptable, and they went and approved a 3% raise for all employees, knowing that they are also combating inflation, and doing so invested in keeping high-quality workforce in place for our students. So all of that to say, this slide is pretty impactful to them. They're grateful for what the board has done, but also understand that it comes with a cost. And so we talk about the cost. Ms. Montoya.
Okay, this line graph shows us, as Mrs. Friddle said earlier, we're staffed on enrollment. So if you look back to the 21-22 school year, our enrollment was a little over 16,000 students, and as you can see in the 25-26 school year, currently we're around 15,700 students. So we've dropped, and we're projected, based on our demographers' information, to drop even a little bit more for the 26-27 school year. And then we are funded on attendance, And so our attendance had been going up since COVID. So prior to COVID, our attendance was pretty good. And then during those COVID years, across the nation, attendance dropped. And so we had been going up a little bit each year. But this year we are down a bit. So last year we ended the school year. Our attendance was 93.99%, and currently we are sitting about 93.45%. Had to do with some, I think, with immigration earlier this school year. So some of the things that, caused that to happen. So we're working, campuses are working really hard to make sure that kids are coming to school every year, but we are currently down a bit from where we were at the end of last year.
So, Linda, question. The negative 2.7 million,
Mm-hmm.
is that the 0.99% to the
No,
0.45?
that's based on enrollment and attendance for this year.
I'm still confused.
So it's the 500 kids in difference in the drop from last
That's
year?
right.
Plus.
That's right, plus the
Plus
overall attendance dropping from the 93.9.
Because honestly, I mean, I look at these percentages, I mean, it looks like a lot on the graph because it's differentiated.
So our cup shrunk. Is that right? By 500 kids? Is that?
What's the difference?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
So our attendance essentially hasn't changed much.
No.
Our ADA has not changed
That's
much.
correct.
What has changed is the number of
That's
children.
correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Right, and
Yes.
and while it fluctuates every day of the
Yes.
week, we've dropped on average at about 300 kids in enrollment. So
Right.
so you're starting at 300 less, to your point, and then when you factor in attendance, that we're 300 kids less, and our attendance for the ones enrolled has not been as great as last year.
Yeah, I guess, and I knew that we were kind of trending downwards in terms of enrollment, but I think the number kind of stuck out to me just now. Do we know why? I mean, I know vouchers and all that stuff is playing a part, but I guess I'm just curious to know why.
I think
Yeah.
there are theories. We actually hired PASA, our demographer, to come back in and help us look at our data because we were falling below what she had projected for the lowest growth scenario. To remind you, when you hire a demographer, they provide three different scenarios. One is high growth, you're an area that's growing and developing. A very stable or flat growth is where we had been falling in recent years, and then a low growth scenario. So we fell below that. We called her up and said, what's going on? And she said she was getting calls from all over the state. It was happening all over the state. So her theory, and this is not me, this is what she shared with us. One theory was immigration, the fear of deportation, all of the things happening in our society, and especially in the state of Texas. A lot of people chose to just keep their kids home this year. And then, or maybe they sent their kids, but the attendance really, we took a hit on that anytime things were erupting locally. So she shared that was a phenomenon happening all across the state. In fact, the demographer did a presentation at the state level at one of the conferences on this very topic. Lots of districts are in the same boat with enrollment and attendance for that same theory.
Yes. And prior to all of the things happening with immigration and all, our attendance was actually over 94% earlier this school year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I guess where I get confused is we hear little growth, no growth, and then you go sit in these city meetings and they talk about growth, growth, growth. Well, where are they getting this growth from that we're not getting?
Well,
Families are coming in. Family means mom, dad, kids. And so I thought that's what a family was. Maybe I missed it, but I'm like, why do we always hear one thing and they always hear something different? Well, we're getting all these companies, and so they're bringing this in. Well, I mean, what's going on?
Well, it is a true statement when the city declares the number of building permits. We are building all over. I live back in Austin's Colony, and I feel like they built a new street full of homes overnight sometimes. So certain areas of the city are absolutely growing. But what we're hearing from the demographer, and again, this is a trend across the state and in our nation, is birth rate is on the decline. I know on my street, when I look around, we have quite a few families, but with younger kids that haven't hit the age to enroll in our school system. And we also have a lot of empty nesters coming into my neighborhood. They are, they went to Texas A&M, but they spent their career in Houston. They're ready for retirement. They're coming back out here to be closer to Kyle Field. So I think there's several theories with all that and school choice. With vouchers coming online, there's a lot of thought about further decreases in enrollment. But besides the vouchers coming along the lines, the number of homeschool kids, charter school kids, online school kids, they have so many options, they're not all choosing public schools anymore. Hence the reason Dr. Ibarra was presenting tonight about a flexible learning opportunity, so we can recapture some of that. We know just from looking over time and the last 10 years that I've been here, there's on average a couple of thousand kids that are zoned to Bryan ISD but have never been enrolled. They did not choose public school for their educational setting. So when you look around at neighboring districts, they are saying the same thing. I believe College Station ISD said something very similar about their enrollment and their attendance. So we're all working together to get back where we need to be. Linda Montoya led a terrific campaign for student attendance, and we were right on our way until things started happening in society, and then
And we do have campuses that their attendance is higher than it was last year. So, but then others that are lower than what
I
they
think
were.
our secondary schools
Yes.
are taking a bigger hit with
they
attendance than our elementaries.
They are.
Elementaries are doing quite well right now.
Yes.
So we're going to keep preaching and explaining the reason we want kids at school. It's more than the dollar sign. It's because we need to teach them and they need to learn.
Yes.
So we really want our kids to be at school for those opportunities. And when they're in school, we of course get average daily attendance. We will also continue to implore our lawmakers to fund public schools on enrollment, not attendance, because even if a student is absent, we still pay the teacher and run the schools.
Absolutely.
It's important, just one note, that it's 6,200 that we get. People think, oh, public schools get that. No, we get that times the average daily attendance. So the max a school would get, if they had 100%, would be that number.
That's correct.
But if you compare it to how they're funding our private school counterparts, they are getting more than 10,000 per student on enrollment. So important distinction.
Yep.
Again, back to that equity word.
Okay, so I'm going to reference Mrs. Friddle's presentation from a few moments ago. She mentioned that 85.2% of our reoccurring expenses is based in payroll, right, which means it's based in people. So if you look at our staff, and the 86% of our money is in people, well, who are those people? So where does all the money go? So there's our representation of who is where, right? And you'll notice, right, we're in the business of teaching and learning students, right? So the lion's share of our people, of course, are in the instructional category, right? So you can see their campus leadership, student support, administrative, M&O, and so on. So we have been working with campuses over the last several weeks about staffing allocations and ratios and all of those things that Mrs. Friddle talked about earlier, because I'm going to jump back a few slides because of this right here. If we're staffing on enrollment and enrollment is on the decline, then of course, when we talk about staffing, then we have to talk about staffing reductions and what that looks like if students are not enrolling with us, right? So moving forward, we've been working with campuses about staffing allocations for next year. That work has been going very well. Principals have been very receptive to changes that need to be made, and just kind of looking forward and facing forward to next school year.
What all fits under student support?
Student support. Help me out, Mrs. Friddle.
That's going to be all
What
of your
function?
functions 31, so your counselors, social workers, nurses, 36 extracurricular. So those are all of your student support functions.
And Mr. Roberts, before you move to the next slide,
Yes,
would you
ma'am.
please explain when you said reducing staff, that means leveraging attrition? We're not laying anyone off.
That is correct.
Can you please elaborate on that?
So we'll get to that in another slide, so you're doing a little
I just
foreshadowing
don't want
for us,
anyone
but
listening
yes.
to think we're reducing.
That is correct. We are not doing a reduction in force or laying anybody off at this point. We are literally leveraging attrition, so people that are retiring, relocating to a different area, leaving the profession, any of those things. So we're looking at those resignations and making sure that we have people to slide into those positions if they're available. So we're making sure that our classrooms are staffed when we start the school year. Yes, ma'am.
Good. Thank you.
Speaking of that, when you look at it, we've been reducing for the last few years through attrition for non-campus, so anything that's kind of off campus. And when you look at it last year alone, we saved basically $750,000, $750,000. And again, when you look across many things, they're having to get done. We've just taken on additional roles. We're just assuming new responsibilities with that as people either retire or they take different jobs or whatever happens. We constantly are looking at it, and that will be, I think, touched here in a minute by Mr. Roberts or one of them, as we look at the creative staffing to make sure that is that position absolutely needed, or can someone else do the work? And we just look to maybe shift those responsibilities or even split those responsibilities to multiple staff members. And so we started with non-campus staff, and then clearly the majority of our staff is on the campus, so we eventually had to get there. But we wanted the campuses to understand that we started first with us, and that's what we did. And so here's just a list of some of the positions, and I won't read them to you, but that have historical, just to remind everybody of what we've done. And so that's, again, ongoing, and as jobs or as people leave or as things happen, we're constantly looking at those. And so we've got a few pages of these that are kind of non-campus staff that we've looked at as well, that we've either shifted responsibilities, retitled, looked at a different pay grade, all of the above, all the way down into the software packages. And you mentioned earlier, Dr. Harlan Wolf, about Skyward. We were able to bring Skyward on board for the reasons that you've listed so well, but we were also able to, in a lot of cases, replace those current softwares that you see. So by bringing one on board, yes, it was a full rollout, and you've heard, I mean, it was complicated. We're not minimizing that by any stretch. It's been anytime you change student information systems, it's hard. They've done a phenomenal job, and there are growing pains. There's going to be from the students all the way to the staff, to the parents. But when you look at what we were able to save and what we were able to gain, it's been worth it for sure. And so we've been able to step back from these programs, and it's just a significantly more robust operating system. All right, I think Mr. Roberts and I have this one as well.
So this is what Mrs. Carabine was alluding to when talking about leveraging attrition. So really looking at campus staffing reductions aligned with declining enrollment, right? Library media specialist reduction, so again, leveraging attrition. We had some folks that were retiring, so reviewing those positions. Every single position that comes in, if people are retiring or leaving or whatever, we are looking at those very closely. Campus monitor restructuring for days and positions, athletic model reductions, substitute cost reductions, which we've talked about before, school nutrition cost sharing, further reduction of staff conference travel. We're continuing to look at that and scrutinize that very heavily for the remainder of this year and into next year. And then again, just hammering home that point, that through attrition, we're reviewing every single position for potential consolidation and cost savings. So every day, if we have, we're having resignations come in for various positions across the district, we're looking at those positions to make sure that we can backfill, like I said, to make sure that our classes are staffed as soon as school starts.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. So as we're looking through all of this information and we gather everyone's feedback, we're not just looking at where can we cut costs, right? So when we typically think about reducing our budgets, our minds automatically go to where can we cut expenditures. On the flip side of that coin, we also need to ask ourselves, are we maximizing our revenues? We need to turn over every single stone. And this slide here does not constitute everything that we have turned over, but it's simply it shows a few examples of everything that we've looked into. So I'm not going to read every single one of them, but we have revisited our revenue share agreement with our Alpha Best program. We have had some PEIMS folder audits and attendance audits. Occasionally, that can also yield additional revenue. We're going to be looking at an attendance audit here very, very soon. And also property value audits. So anytime those state values fluctuate, sometimes they tend to yield additional revenue for school districts, just like we saw in 23-24. So that's just kind of a trick up every CFO sleeve. You definitely want to make sure that you get your property values audited every single year. We've also tweaked our facility rental schedules. We've talked about tax collections and state aid, where we're also on an information session right now with our strategic planning, where we're looking at the possibilities of golden and copper pennies. SHARS revenue, Medicare revenue, that's really on the federal funding side, making sure that we're keeping up with clean participant lists and making sure that we're leveraging every single dollar that we can on the federal funding side. And of course, tied to state revenue is our CTE course enrollment. So again, tied to folder audits as well, we want to make sure that all of our students are properly coded so that we can yield all of the CTE funding that the school district deserves. Okay. And then, of course, looking ahead. So unfortunately, yes, as Ms. Carabine did an amazing job explaining our PASA projections and how the state has seen just declining enrollment across the state. We have also experienced that as well here at our district, along with some lower attendance rates. And as Dr. Ibarra explained earlier, we are in the second year of a biennium. So we're kind of on autopilot right now. We're just coasting. We're not waiting for the legislature to say, hey, we're going to increase the basic allotment. So really the second year of a biennium is just, we are on autopilot right now. It is important to watch our fund balance as we make decisions moving forward. And we all have also made mention, and we've talked about the impact of our health insurance fund on our M&O budget. We want to make sure that we are making, good healthcare choices, good decisions on where we seek our healthcare, because that is directly tied to the general fund as well. Over the next couple of months, we're going to be visiting more campuses to get their feedback and input, and we will continue to have discussions with our DLT as well, and continue to give the board and our leadership updates as we go, all the way up to June, where we have our final budget adoption.
So the final piece of the presentation is where we ask the campuses to give us feedback. We always preface this one with, there's nothing that isn't on the table. There's no bad idea. This is all discussion. And we often find that over the course of the years, when they have a voice, they have good ideas, and they have things that we should take a look at. And so right now, as we go to each campus, we end with this QR code where they can provide feedback to us, and where we can start looking at patterns and trends on things that keep popping across campuses. Over the years, they've been very honest with us, very transparent with us, but also very thankful that, again, as Mrs. Friddle mentioned, that we're doing this with them and not to them, that they're a part of the conversation. Just as much as possible moving forward, so that the board has all the information that you need when you adopt the budget in June moving forward for the coming school year. Team, anything else that you would add? Any questions that we can answer for you? I think we had 15 or 16 presentations today that we covered, so it's a great day.
And it's the third consecutive year, so thank you to the team. Everyone cleared their schedules. We took advantage of a professional learning day and built it into the campus schedule. So I believe it's time well spent. People appreciate us telling them why we make the decisions we make. And they're very appreciative of the board once they explain and hear that you went to bat for them with compensation, and how supportive you are is much, much appreciated.
Have you is this QR code working?
It is, in fact, I was just asked to go take a look at it, so I haven't opened it yet. I was doing presentations most of the day.
Yeah. Ms. Carabine, and even Ms. Whitbeck, Dr. Whitbeck before, but I can't see a district being run by someone any more transparent than she as a leader and you as a cabinet and trickle down all the way. I just, I can see that this, for example, a teacher could go to or is this for teachers and principals?
Yes,
For
all-
anybody.
the whole staff.
I mean, I tell you,
Bus
that's
drivers,
just,
custodian,
We
everyone.
go meet
will
with
hear
technology
some rendition.
services, we
Yeah.
go meet with everybody.
Yeah, and every person sitting in the boardroom could do this presentation with their eyes closed. I mean, we have built tremendous capacity with our team, and now our principals, et cetera, can explain it.
Did you say 15 presentations today?
Dr. Merrill, myself, Mr. Roberts, Ms. Friddle, Ms. Carabine.
That's pretty impressive.
We went a lot of places today. It was the day of
moving about.
Yes.
well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
There's an enormous amount of work in here too. This isn't, this wasn't compressed in the last few months. This has been, I think that your team had the foresight to understand a lot of these challenges were on the horizon before they were actually real. And a lot of the struggles and decision process that you've presented has been, since my tenure on the board, has been in the works, and it's all done in a way that's not just working to retain our staff and create positive experiences for our students and find ways to make it work. And so I appreciate that. It's a ton of work. Thank you.
Mr. Bryan, to your point, one of the things I always emphasize when I did the presentations today and in the past is we're going to have to be more lean, but how do we achieve that without impacting the student experience? The most important thing to all of us is making sure that we uphold the authenticity and the experiences that students have through Bryan ISD, and doing whatever we can to work differently to protect and ensure that that happens. And I know that this whole team, it's a group effort for all of this. It's tremendous teamwork in partnership with the campuses to put our kids first. That's what we're charged to do every day, right?
Well, and I know it's tough on folks. Like when we ask them to do something different, I think about, the cases where we've added to people's plates or something,
Yes.
the staffing models have changed and they're used to something different. There's a book called Who Moved My Cheese? And, we
yes.
need to remember that change is inevitable, but these don't have to be negative things. They just may look different, but I get that that's really hard. I mean, I get the phone calls, I'm sure other board members do, about, well, this position's vacant, and so-and-so could just move into that. Well, we don't have the same number of kids at that school as we had before, so things are shifting, and just because there's a vacancy doesn't mean we're automatically going to fill it. We're trying to figure out what is the best and most efficient model to keep the folks that we have.
I think that goes back to Mrs. Waller's comment of the transparency in working with the campuses. The more that we've done these presentations, we joke, they know the cup, they can explain the cup to us, they're real clear. But they also appreciate that we come back and talk about it and discuss it with them and where are we at and what are we doing differently when we're asking them to do differently. I think that's a pretty important transparency aspect that can't go overlooked.
I say this a lot, I'm sure the board gets tired of hearing me say it, but of the 9 of you sitting there, our cabinet and our leaders, there's probably 12 kids of your own that have gone to Bryan schools. So you have a vested interest. And several of you I worked with as teachers. So you as young teachers grew up through the system, and here you are, one of the top people in the district, but you sat in the same chair as the people that you're going to talk with. And all of that is basically running the district under the golden rule. Treating people, treating parents, treating teachers and students as you would want your own self-parent, student treated. And so we may make mistakes, but it's not because our hearts aren't in the right place.
Absolutely. I think the team would echo that completely.
I mean, Dr.
Thank you.
Merrill alone has supplied our district with like 25
I didn't say it.
kids. Yes, so.
8, 9,
25.
10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mr. Rush, and so there's a lot, yeah, everybody understands, and you can relate to the people you're talking to.
Definitely have a vested interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda, the board can remove any item from the consent agenda if applicable. If there are none, I will entertain a motion.
I move approval of all the items listed on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion was made by Mrs. Benford, seconded by Dr. Harlan Wolf. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Our first action item, 9A, to consider the approval of a budget amendment for the general fund. Presenter, Chief Financial Officer, Mrs. Norma Friddle.
Good evening. Once again, Mr. President, board members, Superintendent Carabine. This evening, we are bringing forward budget amendments for your consideration and approval across all board-adopted budgets. To provide some perspective, as a July 1 fiscal year district, we adopt our budget very early in the process, at a time when many staffing decisions, assignments, and operational details are still being finalized. As a result, that initial budget is built on the best information available at that time, and it is still very preliminary. And because of that, my personal approach is to amend the budgets as the year progresses, to better reflect actual expenditures and updated information as our operations evolve. These amendments allow us to do three things: align the budget with what is actually occurring, ensure accuracy at the function level, and maintain transparency throughout the year. Ultimately, this process ensures that we are audit ready. It helps us prevent function level overages and keeps us in compliance without having any audit findings. So the first budget amendment that we have for consideration and approval relates to the general fund. This amendment includes updates to both the revenue and expenditure sides of the budget. On the revenue side, the most notable adjustment reflects additional state funding received through the Foundation School Program, which generated additional funding for the district as a result of the 23-24 fiscal year property value audit. On the expenditure side, we have reallocated funds across various functions, both increases and decreases, to prevent budget overages and ensure compliance at the function level by year end. You'll also notice that there are letters next to each of the amendments. These correspond to footnotes that provide additional detail and context, so you're able to see the reasoning behind each adjustment. We will continue to monitor our budget to actuals and may bring forward additional amendments as needed prior to the close of the fiscal year. I'd be happy to take any questions on the general fund budget amendment.
Well, I would move to approve all of them, but I guess we have to do them one at a time. So I'm going to move to approve the general fund budget amendment as presented.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Stasny, seconded by Mrs. Benford. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Moving on to 9B. Mrs. Friddle.
Yes, sir.
Pretty
Thank
much the same preface, I guess, but this is a different fund. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for making that distinction. The second budget amendment for your consideration and approval relates to the Child Nutrition Fund. This amendment is fairly straightforward. As part of our annual budget code cleanup process, we reclassified certain payroll expenditures for our maintenance staff. Specifically, some positions were more appropriately coded to Function 51, and this amendment reflects that adjustment. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
I move to approve the Child Nutrition Fund budget amendment as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Stasny, seconded by Mrs. Benford. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. And 9C.
Thank you, sir. Yes, our third and final budget amendment for your consideration and approval relates to the debt service fund. This amendment reflects updated revenue based on our certified property values received and adjusts the balance between local and state funding shares accordingly. This is also a good example of how early estimates evolve over time. The general fund was amended back in October using these same updated values, and this amendment simply brings the debt service fund in alignment as well. So in simple terms, as we receive more accurate property values, we're able to produce more precise estimates of our tax collections and our state funding as well. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
I move to approve the debt service fund budget amendment as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Benford, seconded by Mr. Stasny. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The board will now convene in closed session to discuss the following items as allowed by the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551.074, 551.0821, and 551.072. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in a closed session will occur after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. The time is now 8:30 p.m.
We only have that property, so Norma's gonna come back and then tell everybody else they can go.
Okay.
Be free.
Great. The board reconvened in open session at 9:07 PM. No action was taken in closed session. There being no further business, the meeting adjourned at 9:07 PM.